Nestled in the golden sands of a sprawling desert, Nuriya was a city of hope and resilience. Known as the City of Light, it was a haven where traders, artisans, and dreamers gathered to seek their fortunes and find peace in faith. The city's bustling streets were lined with vibrant market stalls, its towering minarets casting long shadows over the maze-like alleys. It was here, amidst the hum of daily life, that a young artisan named Samir struggled with questions that weighed heavily on his heart. He prayed, he worked, and he waited. But his dreams seemed perpetually out of reach. Little did he know, every trial he faced was a step towards something greater. Samir's workshop sat at the far end of the bustling marketplace, tucked away behind rows of larger, more prominent shops. It was a modest space, with walls adorned by intricate jewelry pieces he had crafted over the years. The sparkle of silver and gold caught the sunlight, drawing the occasional passerby, but Samir's stall lacked the steady stream of customers that his neighbors seemed to enjoy. Every morning, he would meticulously arrange his creations, polishing each piece until it gleamed, hoping that today would bring a change. But as the hours passed, he would often find himself staring at his empty ledger, his heart sinking deeper with every moment of silence. Despite his struggles, Samir's talent was undeniable. His hands worked with the precision of an artist, shaping delicate patterns that seemed almost alive. His designs were sought after by those who appreciated fine craftsmanship. Yet his work remained overshadowed by the wealthier merchants who dominated the marketplace. Their larger shops, adorned with lavish decorations and expensive advertisements, drew the attention of most customers. Samir couldn't help but feel like a small fish in a vast ocean, struggling to be noticed amidst the glittering competition. The weight of his unfulfilled dreams bore heavily on Samir. His ultimate goal was to own a prominent workshop in the heart of Nuriya, a place where his talent could truly shine. He often imagined his name etched in gold above a grand storefront, with noblemen and merchants crowding to purchase his creations. But every time he inched closer to saving enough money for his dream, life seemed to intervene. His father's failing health had drained his savings. A fire in his workshop had destroyed his most valuable tools, and unexpected downturns in the market had left him struggling to make ends meet. "Why does this keep happening?" Samir muttered one evening as he closed his stall for the day. The vibrant marketplace was now quiet, its bustling energy replaced by the soft glow of lanterns and the faint sound of the evening adhan. Samir leaned against the wooden counter, staring at the sky as if searching for answers among the stars. "Ya Allah," he whispered, his voice trembling. "I work hard, I pray. I try to do what is right. Why do my efforts never seem enough?" At home, Samir's frustration often spilled over into his conversations with his family. His younger sister, Layla, would try to console him, reminding him to have faith. "Samir, Allah knows what is best for us," she would say gently. "Sometimes what feels like a delay is actually a blessing." But her words, though well-meaning, only deepened his frustration. "I've been patient, Layla," he would reply. "How much longer must I wait?" His tone, though not harsh, carried the weight of his despair. The bustling marketplace of Nuriya didn't make things easier. Each day, as Samir walked to his workshop, he passed by the thriving stalls of his competitors. Their shops were vibrant and inviting, filled with customers admiring their wares. The merchants greeted Samir warmly, their smiles genuine, but unintentionally reminding him of his own struggles. "Business is good today," one of them would say, holding up a bag of gold coins. Samir would nod politely, but inside his envy burned. "Why them and not me?" he often thought. Guilt followed quickly, for he knew envy was a poison to the soul. But the ache of his unmet dreams was difficult to ignore. Samir's prayers became more frequent, but also more desperate. Each night, he knelt on his prayer mat, pouring his heart out to Allah. "Ya Allah," he pleaded, tears streaking his cheeks. "I am trying my best. I stay honest, I don't cut corners, I work hard. Why does success feel so far away? Am I not worthy of the blessings I ask for?" His voice cracked with emotion, his head bowed low in sujud. He sought comfort in his faith, but the silence he perceived felt like rejection, and his patience began to wear thin. At times, Samir found himself questioning the fairness of it all. He looked at others who seemed to thrive effortlessly and wondered why his journey was so fraught with obstacles. "Am I being punished?" he wondered aloud one evening as he sat by the fountain in Nuriya's central square. An elderly man passing by overheard him and paused. "Young man," the man said with a kind smile, "Allah tests those he loves. Perhaps what you see as a delay is actually preparation." The words lingered in Samir's mind, but his frustration remained, clouding his ability to fully grasp their meaning. The days turned into weeks, and the weight of Samir's struggles grew heavier. The once vibrant spark in his eyes dimmed, replaced by a quiet resignation. Yet, even in his lowest moments, a part of him clung to hope. Deep down, he believed that Allah had not forgotten him, though his heart ached for reassurance. What Samir didn't realize was that his prayers were not unanswered. They were being fulfilled in ways he could not yet see. Allah was not denying him. He was shaping him for something far greater than he could imagine. The evening air in Nuriya was cool and carried the faint scent of jasmine as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the city in a soft golden glow. The bustling energy of the marketplace began to wane, replaced by a calm serenity. The adhan for Maghrib prayer echoed through the winding streets, a call that reminded the city's residents of their connection to something greater. Among those heading toward the Grand Mosque was Samir, his steps heavy with the weight of his frustrations. The mosque, a masterpiece of Nuriya's architecture, stood tall with intricate domes and minarets adorned with Quranic verses in delicate calligraphy. Samir entered, the cool marble beneath his feet grounding him as he joined the congregation for Salah. As he stood shoulder to shoulder with others, the rhythmic recitation of the Imam brought a brief sense of peace to his troubled heart. Yet, as the prayer ended and the congregation began to disperse, the heaviness within him returned. Instead of leaving, Samir lingered in the mosque's courtyard, where the soft light of lanterns illuminated its arches. Sitting in a quiet corner, he raised his hands in dua, his voice barely above a whisper. "Ya Allah," he began, his tone filled with desperation. "Please show me a sign. I feel lost. Am I not worthy of what I ask? Have I done something wrong?" The words faltered as a lump rose in his throat, and he bowed his head, struggling to hold back tears. "Sometimes, young man," a voice interrupted gently, "it is not about worthiness, but readiness." Samir looked up, startled. An elderly man stood nearby, his face framed by a neatly trimmed white beard, and his eyes warm with understanding. He wore simple yet elegant robes, and his presence exuded a calmness that immediately put Samir at ease. "Assalamu alaikum," the man said, gesturing to the space beside Samir. "May I sit with you?" Samir hesitated for a moment before nodding. "Wa alaikum assalam," he replied, moving slightly to make room. The man settled down, his movements deliberate and unhurried. For a moment, they sat in silence, the distant murmurs of the city fading into the background. Finally, the man spoke again. "I noticed your expression during Salah," he said. "You seem burdened. What troubles your heart?" Samir glanced at the stranger, unsure whether to share the weight of his thoughts with someone he didn't know. Yet, something about the man's demeanor invited honesty. "I've been praying for years," Samir admitted, his voice low. "I've worked tirelessly, stayed honest, and sought Allah's guidance, but every time I get close to achieving my dreams, something pulls me back. It feels as though my prayers go unanswered." The man listened intently, his expression thoughtful. When Samir finished, the man leaned forward slightly, resting his hands on his knees. "Do you believe Allah does not hear you?" he asked, his voice gentle but firm. Samir hesitated, the question striking a nerve. "I don't know," he admitted. "I want to believe he does, but it's hard when nothing seems to change." The man nodded, as if he understood the struggle behind Samir's words. "Let me tell you a story," he said, his tone taking on a storytelling rhythm. "Do you know of Prophet Joseph, peace be upon him? When he was thrown into the well by his brothers, sold into slavery, and imprisoned unjustly, do you think his prayers were ignored?" Samir shook his head. "No," he replied softly. "Exactly," the man said with a smile. "Every trial Prophet Yusuf faced was part of a greater plan. His time in the well taught him patience. His time as a slave taught him resilience. His time in prison taught him humility and wisdom. When Allah elevated him to a position of honor, he was not only ready for the role, but also able to fulfill it with excellence. Had he received that honor too soon, he may not have been prepared for its responsibility." Samir furrowed his brow, the story resonating deeply. "Are you saying my struggles are part of my preparation?" he asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. The man's smile widened. "Indeed," he said, "Allah never delays without wisdom. What you see as obstacles are often lessons, shaping you into the person you need to be to receive the blessings you've prayed for. Do you think Allah would entrust you with something you are not yet ready to handle?" The question lingered in the air, its weight settling over Samir's heart. He had spent so much time viewing his challenges as barriers that he had never considered them as stepping stones. "But how do I know if I'm ready?" he asked after a moment, his voice filled with uncertainty. The man leaned back slightly, his gaze steady. "You don't," he said simply. "That is why trust in Allah is essential. He knows what you cannot. Your job is not to question His timing, but to make the most of the time He gives you. Use your challenges to grow, and when the blessing you seek arrives, you will be ready to receive it." For the first time in months, Samir felt a glimmer of hope pierce through the fog of his frustration. The man's words were like water to his parched soul, offering a perspective he had never considered. "Thank you," Samir said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. "You've given me much to think about." The man smiled, placing a hand on Samir's shoulder. "Remember, young man," he said, "Allah's delays are not denials. They are His way of preparing you for what you've asked for. Trust in His plan, and you will find peace." As the man rose and walked away, disappearing into the shadows of the mosque's arches, Samir sat for a while longer, letting the stranger's words settle in his heart. He still didn't have all the answers, but he felt a small spark of faith reignite within him. For the first time in a long time, he whispered a dua not of desperation, but of gratitude. "Ya Allah," he prayed, "help me trust in your wisdom. Make me ready for what I have asked." The dawn in Nuria brought with it a renewed sense of clarity for Samir. The words of the elderly stranger from the night before echoed in his mind as he prepared for the day. "Your challenges are not barriers, they are lessons," the man had said. For the first time, Samir began to view his struggles not as punishments, but as opportunities for growth. Though doubt still lingered in the corners of his heart, the spark of hope was enough to set him on a new path. As Samir opened his modest workshop that morning, he whispered, "Bismillah," before arranging his jewelry on display. The act, though simple, felt different this time. It was not just a phrase, but an acknowledgement of Allah's presence in his efforts. When a customer entered the stall to browse his creations, Samir greeted them with warmth and patience, even when they haggled over prices. Instead of feeling frustrated, he reminded himself that each interaction was a chance to refine his character. "This is preparation," he told himself. The first true test of his newfound perspective came a few days later. A sudden storm swept through Nuria, bringing heavy winds and rain that damaged several stalls in the marketplace. When Samir arrived at his workshop, he found that the roof had leaked, soaking the velvet-lined boxes where his jewelry was stored. A handful of pieces were tarnished, their once brilliant luster dulled. The sight was enough to reignite the frustration he had tried so hard to suppress. "Why, Ya Allah?" he muttered under his breath. "Why this now?" But as the initial wave of despair passed, the stranger's words returned to him. "Use your challenges to grow." Taking a deep breath, Samir assessed the damage. Instead of dwelling on the loss, he focused on salvaging what he could. He carefully cleaned and polished the tarnished pieces, his hands steady despite the weight in his chest. By the end of the day, his workbench gleamed with restored jewelry, and though the storm had taken its toll, Samir felt a sense of quiet accomplishment. "I cannot control the storm," he reflected, "but I can control how I respond." In the weeks that followed, Samir encountered more challenges, each one testing his patience and faith. When a customer demanded a refund for a piece they claimed was flawed, Samir resisted the urge to argue. Instead, he calmly listened and offered a replacement, ensuring the customer left satisfied. When he struggled to gather enough funds to repair his workshop's roof, he took on additional orders, working late into the night by the light of a single lantern. Each difficulty became an exercise in perseverance, and with every trial he overcame, Samir felt his resilience grow. It was during one of these late nights that Samir began to truly reflect on the stranger's wisdom. Perhaps, he thought, Allah is teaching me more than patience. Perhaps he is teaching me humility, gratitude, and trust. He realized that his struggles had forced him to rely on Allah in ways he hadn't before. In the quiet of his workshop, he raised his hands in dua. "Ya Allah," he prayed, "I don't know what lies ahead, but I trust that you are preparing me for it. Grant me the strength to endure and the wisdom to learn." One morning, as Samir worked on a particularly intricate bracelet for a wealthy merchant's wife, he overheard a conversation that piqued his interest. Two men were discussing a rare opportunity in a neighboring city. The royal family was seeking an artisan to create jewelry for an upcoming celebration, and the position required not only skill, but also a reputation for integrity and resilience. Samir's heart raced as he listened. This could be my chance, he thought, excitement bubbling within him. But as quickly as hope rose, doubt crept in. Am I ready? He wondered. The question lingered, bringing with it memories of past failures and setbacks. Yet, as he looked down at the bracelet he was crafting, its delicate patterns coming to life under his skilled hands, a quiet confidence began to build within him. He thought of the lessons he had learned, the patience to endure, the humility to grow, and the trust to move forward despite uncertainty. This is what I've been preparing for, he realized. That evening, Samir gathered his finest pieces and began preparing for the opportunity. He worked meticulously, polishing each creation until it shone like the desert sun. But more than his craft, he prepared his heart. He prayed for guidance, for clarity, and for the courage to embrace whatever Allah had in store for him. For the first time, he felt not just hope, but gratitude for the journey that had brought him to this moment. The trials he once resented had become his greatest teachers, shaping him into someone who could face the future with faith and strength. As he packed his creations, Samir whispered a quiet prayer. Ya Allah, If this is for me, make it easy. And if it is not, grant me contentment in knowing you have something better planned." With those words, he felt a peace he hadn't known in years, ready to step into the unknown with trust in Allah's wisdom. The day of the interview arrived with the first light of dawn spreading across the desert city of Nuriya. Samir stood in his modest workshop, carefully inspecting the pieces he had prepared. Each bracelet, necklace, and ring carried a story of its own, crafted with precision and passion. The sunlight streaming through the small window caught the intricate designs, making them gleam like treasures pulled from the sands. Samir ran his fingers over the polished surfaces, whispering a quiet Bismillah before placing them into a soft velvet case. Today, he would not just present his work, he would present the lessons of his journey. The journey to the neighboring city was long, the desert winds brushing against Samir's face as he rode on a small caravan. With every mile, his heart alternated between excitement and doubt. He thought of the royal advisor he was about to meet and wondered if his work would measure up. The whispers of, "Am I ready?" crept into his mind, but Samir quickly silenced them with prayer. "Ya Allah, guide me to what is best and make me content with your decree," he repeated, grounding himself in the trust he had learned to cultivate. Upon reaching the royal palace, Samir's breath caught at the sight of its grandeur. The palace, adorned with towering spires and golden domes, reflected the majesty of the desert sun. Guards in ornate uniforms led him through sprawling courtyards filled with blooming gardens and fountains that sparkled in the light. The air smelled of roses and oud, a scent that seemed to calm his nerves. "This is it," Samir thought, clutching the case of jewelry tightly. "This is what I've been preparing for." Inside the palace's grand hall, Samir was greeted by the royal advisor, a tall man with a discerning gaze. The advisor, dressed in flowing robes of deep green and gold, studied Samir with quiet curiosity. "You are the artisan from Nuriya," he said, his voice measured. Samir bowed respectfully. "Yes, sir," he replied. "I am honored to present my work." The advisor nodded, motioning for Samir to step forward. "Show me what you have created," he instructed. Samir opened the velvet case with steady hands, revealing his finest creations. The advisor leaned in, examining each piece closely. The delicate engravings, the balance of gemstones, and the craftsmanship all spoke of Samir's skill. But what caught the advisor's attention was the small imperfections, barely noticeable, yet enough to reveal the humanity behind the art. "These are exceptional," the advisor remarked, his tone thoughtful. "But tell me, young man, what drives your work?" Samir hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I craft with the intention of serving others and honoring the blessings Allah has given me," he said earnestly. "Each piece I create is a reflection of the lessons I've learned through trials, patience, humility, and trust in Allah's plan. I believe beauty lies not just in perfection, but in the effort and sincerity behind it." The advisor's expression softened, and he leaned back, studying Samir carefully. "Your work speaks of skill," he said, "but your words speak of wisdom. We have seen many artisans, but few with a story like yours. Tell me, how do you face challenges?" Samir smiled faintly, the lessons of his journey clear in his mind. "Challenges are teachers," he replied. "Each one has shaped me into the artisan I am today. Without them, I would not be standing here." The advisor's gaze lingered on Samir, a smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "Your reputation precedes you," he said finally. "I've heard of your resilience in the face of setbacks, your integrity in your dealings, and your dedication to your craft. These qualities are rare, and they are what we seek in someone who will represent the royal family. Congratulations, Samir. The position is yours." Samir's heart swelled with gratitude, the words sinking in like the rain upon parched soil. The years of struggle, the unanswered prayers, and the moments of doubt had all led to this moment. He bowed deeply, his voice steady despite the emotion welling within him. "Thank you," he said. "I pray that I serve this role with sincerity and excellence." As Samir left the palace, the weight of his journey settled upon him in a profound way. The caravan ride back to Nuriya felt lighter, the desert winds carrying not just the news of his success, but also the realization of Allah's wisdom. Each bump in the road, each grain of sand that had once seemed an obstacle, now felt like part of the grand tapestry of his story. He thought of the countless nights he had spent questioning Allah's plan, the tears shed in frustration, and the moments when hope seemed like a distant star. Now, as the sun set behind the dunes, painting the sky in hues of gold and purple, Samir whispered a prayer of gratitude. "Ya Allah, you were never late. Every step of my journey was preparing me for this moment. Forgive my impatience and let me serve you through this blessing." The return to Nuriya was marked not by fanfare, but by quiet reflection. As the caravan moved steadily through the desert sands, Samir sat in contemplative silence, the weight of his experiences settling into his heart like a soft rain nourishing parched earth. The golden light of the setting sun bathed the dunes, casting long shadows that seemed to mirror the years he had spent in struggle and doubt. For the first time in what felt like forever, Samir saw those years not as wasted time, but as essential steps in his journey. The streets of Nuriya greeted him with their familiar hum of life. Children played in the alleyways, merchants called out their wares, and the scent of spices and baked bread filled the air. Yet, everything felt different. Samir's heart, once heavy with frustration, now carried a newfound peace. He walked through the marketplace with steady steps, his gaze soft as he looked upon the stalls of his fellow artisans. The envy he had once felt was gone, replaced by a sense of gratitude for his unique path. At his modest workshop, Samir set down the velvet case containing his finest pieces. The light streaming through the window illuminated the space, and for the first time he truly appreciated what he had built. The chipped walls, the worn tools, the small but beautiful displays, they were all testaments to his perseverance and trust in Allah's plan. He ran his fingers over the workbench, whispering a quiet Alhamdulillah for the trials that had brought him here. Later that evening, as Samir sat with his family, he shared the news of his success. His younger sister Layla clapped her hands in joy, her face lighting up with pride. "I knew your time would come," she said, her voice brimming with excitement. His parents, their eyes glistening with tears, embraced him tightly. "We always prayed for you, Samir," his mother said. "And now Allah has answered in ways we could never have imagined." Samir smiled, his heart swelling with gratitude. "It wasn't just the destination," he said softly. "It was the journey. Every delay, every setback, was a lesson I needed to learn. Allah wasn't denying me. He was shaping me." His father, his voice frail but steady, placed a hand on Samir's shoulder. "Allah's plan is always greater than ours," he said. "You are ready now because you trusted him, even when you didn't understand." That night, Samir returned to the grand mosque where he had first met the elderly stranger. The courtyard was quiet, the lanterns casting soft pools of light on the marble floors. As Samir knelt in sujud, he poured his heart out to Allah, not in desperation as he once had, but in deep gratitude. "Ya Allah," he whispered, his voice trembling with emotion, "forgive me for my impatience and doubt. Thank you for every trial, every lesson and every delay. I see now that you were never late. You were always preparing me." As he rose from prayer, he found himself thinking of the stranger who had sparked this transformation. Though the man was nowhere to be seen, his words lingered in Samir's heart like a guiding star. Allah's delays are not denials, they are His way of preparing you. Samir silently resolved to carry that wisdom forward, not only in his own life, but as a source of encouragement for others. Over the weeks that followed, Samir continued his work with a renewed sense of purpose. His position as a royal artisan brought him prestige and financial stability, but he remained humble, never forgetting the lessons of his journey. He began mentoring young artisans in Nuriya, sharing not only his skills, but also the wisdom that had shaped his path. Success, he would tell them, is not just about reaching your destination. It's about who you become along the way. The changes in Samir's character were evident to all who knew him. He was more patient with customers, more generous with his time, and more reflective in his actions. When people in the marketplace sought his advice, he would listen carefully before responding with words that echoed the stranger's wisdom. Trust in Allah's plan. He knows what you need, even when you cannot see it. One day, a young apprentice approached Samir with tears in his eyes. "I feel like giving up," the boy admitted. "I've been working so hard, but nothing seems to go right." Samir smiled gently, placing a reassuring hand on the boy's shoulder. "I used to feel the same," he said, "but let me tell you something I learned. Allah never delays without reason. Every hardship you face is preparing you for something greater. Keep working, keep praying, and trust that your time will come." As the years passed, Samir's name became synonymous not only with fine craftsmanship, but also with unwavering faith and wisdom. His workshop, once a modest corner stall, became a beacon of hope for others who faced their own trials. People came not only to admire his jewelry, but to hear his story, a story of patience, trust, and the unseen preparations of Allah. One evening, as Samir stood at the edge of the desert overlooking Nuriya, the stars above glittered like the silver he worked with each day. He whispered a quiet dua. "Ya Allah, let me always remember that your wisdom is greater than mine. Grant me the strength to trust you, no matter what lies ahead." The cool desert breeze brushed against his face, carrying with it the peace of knowing that every trial had been worth it. Samir's journey had taught him one profound truth. Allah's timing is perfect. His delays are not denials, but a way of shaping us into the people we need to be. And in that realization, Samir found not just success, but true contentment. Samir's journey reminds us that Allah's timing is always perfect. What may seem like delays, unanswered prayers, or impossible challenges are in reality lessons and preparations for what we've asked for. Each trial we face shapes us, strengthens us, and brings us closer to the blessings we are destined to receive. Remember, Allah does not deny His servants. He equips them. Trust in His wisdom, even when the path is unclear, and know that His plan for you is always greater than what you can imagine. Begin your tasks with Bismillah, face your challenges with patience, and end every day with gratitude. These simple acts align your heart with His guidance and pave the way for ease. Let this story inspire you to reflect on your own journey. What trials are shaping you today? What prayers are preparing you for tomorrow? Trust in Allah, and you will find peace. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories.